Good afternoon, grade 9, Eagle.
Good afternoon, sir.
Okay, so for today, we are going to have a productive lesson. Okay, so I hope that you will be learning new information and facts to be presented later on. Okay, so can I request a full and active participation from you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so good afternoon once again. So, good afternoon, 9 Eagle. Welcome to English class with Sir Mark. So, but before we're going to have the formal lesson later, I will now introduce to you a brain teaser. Do you want it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, a brain teaser that will encourage you to participate. So, in here, I am going to present unlocking difficulty and game called What's the Word? So you will guess the word based on the picture that you will see on the screen. Picture or a word that correspond to the syllable. Okay, did you get my explanation?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's begin for the word number 1. What will happen if we combine and this one? Guess. Yes.
I think the word is agree.
Okay. Clap your hands for art. The word is agree because the picture is planting. So it's therefore related to agriculture. And then plus men. So therefore the word is agreement. So repeat. The word is
Agreement.
Okay, so just inform you that those words that will be discussed today is related to our lesson earlier. Next. How about this one? How about this one? What's the word? Yes. Grammar. Okay, very good. The word is grammar. What is it, grammar? Gra plus the picture of mar. So therefore, the word is grammar. Okay. How about the third picture? Let me see. How about this one? Yes? The word is past tense. Okay, correct. The word is past plus 10 and s. How about the last word to be guessed? It may be quite hard or difficult, but I hope you can guess the word. Anybody from this class can guess the word? What's the first picture? Coin. What's another term for coin? Money. What else? Cent. Oh, it's quite near. Cent plus this one. What's the emotion in here? What's the emotion in the second picture? Scared. What's the other term? Afraid. What's the other term? Yes, Aaron. Can you now guess what's the word?
I think the word is value judgment.
Value judgment. Any other guess? Yes. What's the word? Yes. Sentence. Because the emotion in here is tense. So again, repeat. What's the word?
Sentence.
Okay. So class, our lesson for today is all about subject-verb agreement. So, may I request this group to please read what's the meaning of subject-verb agreement? Ready? Read.
Subject-verb agreement means that subjects and verbs must always agree in number, not only the also can change its form to indicate how many subjects it has.
Okay, when we say subject-verb agreement, that means that the subject and verb must always agree in number. Not only does a verb change its form to tell time. When we say change its form to tell time, we are now dealing with those tenses. What are those tenses that we have? First, we have past tense, future tense, and present tense. So, not only that, but also the subject and in number. And when we say subject, this is the main idea in a sentence, the main topic of the sentence. Okay? And then, it changes its form to indicate how many subject it has. And it is now related into the singularity and the plurality of the verb. So in contrast to pluralization of nouns, in noun, what's the singular form in noun? Is it with S or without S?
Without S.
Okay, without S. In the plural in noun,
Yes.
S. But in verb, in contrast, we don't use with S in verb in its singular. We use S in singular form. Okay, with S in verb. The singular. And the plural of the verb is without
S.
S. Okay? So I hope it's clear for everybody. So may I now introduce to you the basic rule. Okay? The basic rule states that a singular subject takes a singular verb, whereas a plural subject takes a plural verb. So let's say, for example, please read this group, the example. The list, go.
The list of items is on the desk.
Is on the desk. Okay, in basic rule, what is the subject in this sentence? What's the subject in here? List. So is list singular or plural?
Singular.
Therefore, we use the verb is because the subject is singular. Okay, so that's our example. That's the basic rule. Okay? Okay, how about in this example? People at the market speak or speaks loudly. First, you are going to identify what's the subject. What's the subject in the sentence?
People.
People. Is people singular or plural? Plural. Therefore, we are going to use speak or speaks.
Speak.
Speak or speaks.
Speak.
You take note, it's in here.
Speak.
People, plural, and then the subject must also be plural. So therefore, you are going to use speak without S because that's the plural form of the verb. Okay? It may be confusing, and now you are informed that the plural form of the verb should not have an S at the end. Okay? Is it understood, class?
Yes, sir.
Okay, next rule. We're going to proceed in rule to the exemption to the basic rule. We still have an exemption to the basic rule. Stated that the first person pronoun I and you takes a plural verb. Though the word or the pronoun I is singular, likewise you is singular, it will take a plural verb because it's the exemption to the basic rule. Unlike to the basic rule, singular noun, singular verb, plural noun, plural verb, in here, plural, singular pronoun, but you're going to use plural verb. So you use I go without ES. You drive without S. You cannot say I goes or you cannot say you drive. So let's take up an example. Example, please read this group number 1. Example number 1.
I need to go home early.
Okay, so in the first example, what's the subject? I, and then the verb? Go. So, I, and then go. Next, you, then drive. So, though I and you are pronouns which is singular, but then again, they will use plural form of the verb. That's exemption to the basic rule. So now you know, you have another info and you have another insight about this one. Next, we're going to proceed on rule number 1. In rule number 1, the two singular subjects connected by the word or, either or kaya naman, neither nor requires a singular subject. So let's take a look at the example herein. Number 1, please read this group. Example number 1, my aunt or my uncle, go.
My aunt or my uncle is arriving by train today.
Okay, the highlighted word there are the subject. Aunt or my uncle. So as you can see, the word or the subject in here are two singular subject. Aunt is singular, uncle is singular, but they are joined by the word or the connector or. It also requires a singular verb. That's why we're going to use the verb is, although we have two subjects that we can see. Another one, neither Juan nor Carmen is available. Juan is singular, Carmen is also singular. And for the last one, that group, let's read, either
Kiana or Cassie is helping today with stage decorations.
Okay, either Kiana or Cassie is helping today with stage decoration. So, if the two subjects are joined by or neither nor, it's basically we are going to use singular form of the verb. How about in this rule number 2? The verb in an or, either or neither nor sentence agrees with the noun or pronoun closest to it. So unlike to the first rule, rule number 1, we're going to use here, or we're going to look for which is the closest to the verb. Okay, which is the closest to the verb. And then, that's when we decide when we're going to use singular or plural. So let's take, for example, this one. Number 1, neither the plates nor the serving bowl goes on that shelf. So in here, we can see two subjects that was joined by neither and nor. What's the first subject? Plates. Plates, singular or plural? Plural. Next, the second subject is bowl. So what's bowl? Singular or plural? Singular. So it's contrast. Diba? Well, the first one is plural, the second one is singular. So you will see or you will be basing on the subject that is closest to the verb, which is the bowl. So that's why we're going to use the verb goes with S, singular. Okay, how about in the second example? This group, let's read.
Neither the serving bowl nor the plates go on the shelf.
So same example, but the subject now are reversed. Okay? Bowl and then plates. So since now the plates are plural, therefore we're going to use plural form of the verb, which is go without S. Okay, that's the rule number 2. How about in rule number 3? In rule number 3, as a general rule, use a plural verb with two or more subjects when they are connected by the conjunction and. Okay, let's take a look for this example. Number 1. Everybody read. Okay, we can see two subjects in here, which is the first one is car and then bike. But what's the connector used? And unlike to the first rule, it was connected by the word or. But if it's connected by and, you will take the two or more subjects and you will take plural verb. So that's why we are going to use the verb are. Car and bike, and then the verb was are. Okay? But there is also an exemption to this. An exemption. Let's have an example. You should note this exemption. Number 1, example, breaking and entering is against the law. Number 2, the bed and breakfast was charming. So the highlighted words in number 1, the subject is breaking and entering. Although they are joined by the word or connector and, they are considered as singular because in here we are going to use compound nouns. When we say compound nouns, they are considered as one word. Although they are connected by the word and, that's considered as one. Breaking and entering, bread and breakfast. Let's use an example, Beauty and the Beast. Okay, that's the name of a movie. And that is singular. And therefore, it requires a singular verb. That's the rule number 3. Okay? Let's proceed to rule number 4A. Okay, this group, please read the rule number 4A. Sometimes the subject, go.
Sometimes the subject is separated from the verb by such words as along with, as well as, besides, not, etc. These words and phrases are not part of the subject. Ignore them and use a singular verb when the subject is singular and a plural verb if its subject is plural.
Take a look at this example. Okay, sometimes the subject is separated from the verb. Using the word as long with, as well as, besides. So, example number 1, the politician, along with the newsman, is expected shortly. What's the verb in here? What's the subject in here, rather? The politician. Okay, is politician singular or plural? Singular. Therefore, we are going to use singular form of the verb, which is. Okay? You set aside this one along with the newsman because that's not part of the subject. The subject is also the politician. Same with number 2, excitement as well as nervousness is cause of her shaking. And for the last one, teachers as well as students are present today. So those after the comma, you set aside that and you will not look that as part of the subject. Okay? Let's start going to proceed to rule 4B. In rule 4B, parentheses are not part of the subject. Let's have an example. This group, read the example. Jo, go. So we have now the subject Jo. Jo. But it has a parenthesis in there saying, and his trusty much was always welcome. Okay, Jo is only the part of the subject. That's only the subject in there. You do not include in the subject those who are included in the parentheses. You set aside that and you use singular form of the verb if the subject is singular. Okay? So, that's the rule for B. Okay. let's see if you have understood what we discussed earlier in this following or several activities that we can have. Okay? You are going to choose the right form of the verb and then tell if it's right or wrong. Okay? Number 1. Supply the blanks with the correct form of verbs. Everybody read. Rika and Janine, go.
Rika and Janine
Are intelligent. Okay. What's the subject in the first example? Rika and Janine. And it is connected by the conjunction and. Therefore, what verb are we going to use? Is or are? Are. Very good. So are because the subject are